Hi, my name is Kristie DeMarco, and I'm the president and founder of Global Dare Foundation. For today's presentation, I'd like to start by giving you a little bit of background on how I became an advocate for Refsum disease. From there, I'd like to discuss the work of Global Dare Foundation and discuss areas of focus for Refsum research. In April 2019, I was diagnosed with Refsum disease through genetic testing after 2 years of rapid deteriorating health. In those 2 years, I had gone from being an Ironman level triathlete to walking in constant pain. I also started to lose my peripheral vision and I lost my sense of smell. It was a very scary time for me. I was incredibly lucky during this journey to connect with a great group of people with Refsum disease through this private Facebook group. I learned from them all about the diet and some of the challenges of living with the disease. Many had been impacted by Refsum for many years. Many of them, even with good compliance with the diet, had vision loss and hearing loss and mobility challenges. Many of them, what I learned is, Refsum disease was really a forgotten disease. There had been a lot of great research done in the past to understand the disease and establish the current therapies. However, no one was actively researching for a cure or better therapies. After everything I learned, I decided I wanted to take action. I wanted to change my potential future and make a positive impact for the rest of the Refsum community. This led me, along with others, with Refsum to establish Global Dare Foundation in October of 2019. Switch the page here. So Global Dare Foundation's mission, is to promote worldwide awareness and better quality of life for those who are diagnosed with adult Refsum disease. And our goal is to support research, education initiatives, awareness campaigns, and advocacy. Driving research is at the center of what we do because we dare to believe there's a cure for adult Refsum disease. And DARE stands for Defeat Adult Refsum Everywhere. Let me switch to the next slide. So in the beginning of our journey, we started with a 5-person board. These were made up of 3 patients and a couple family members. This was a small and mighty board, and we accomplished a lot in the first couple of years from when we started. I'll cover our accomplishments in a few slides later. Last year, we began to grow the board to ensure that we had a diverse set of skills and perspectives to everything that we do. We also wanted to set up DARE for long-term success. I'm proud of the strong and diverse team we have built with our 11-person board. I know with this board, we'll be able to accomplish a lot more into the future. Let me switch the page again. On to our medical and scientific advisory board. Right from the start, we knew that we needed a team of medical and research experts to support our mission. We recruited experts from all around the world, right? They're made up of the foremost researchers and clinicians in the field of Refsum disease, peroxisomal disorders, retinitis pigmentosa. And the MSAB is constantly collaborating with us on how to improve treatment and care and direct the areas of focus for Refsum research. One of the most exciting things that the MSAB is working on is treatment guidelines. Having published treatment guidelines will just have a big impact on influencing better quality of care for people with Refsum disease. In addition to the treatment guidelines, we just recently established a new center of excellence in the US, very similar to the Refsum Clinic in London that has been established for so many years. This multidisciplinary team is located at Mass General and Mass Eye and Ear in Boston, Massachusetts. Let me go to the next slide. So we've accomplished a lot, as I mentioned, in the last 2 years. I'm just going to walk you through some of those accomplishments just so you can get an idea of what we've been able to do. So we launched early on a webinar series alongside our medical and scientific advisory board, as well as some other experts. really to raise awareness, amongst clinicians, dietitians, medical professionals, patients, and caregivers, and just the general public. We rolled out the first ever patient registry in August of 2020. I'll share a little bit about the patient registry a little further down in the slides. We launched our country ambassador program. So our country ambassador program was established to raise awareness around the world. Our country ambassadors are responsible for establishing and building relationships across their countries, to increase awareness and support of Refsum disease. They act as the official liaisons for Global Dare Foundation. We established the mouse model, at Johns Hopkins Hospital to start some preliminary research. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. We built a whiteboarding video, to raise awareness. We wanted something that was easy to understand, that could be understood by many. And we translated that into 5 different languages to raise awareness. We had the food testing program. So we're highly reliant on understanding how much photanic acid is in food. Well, not much food has been tested, so we're tackling that, and it's a great win for the community. We've been doing fundraising events since we've been started, and we had a really successful 5K event last year where we raised almost just over $33,000. And our patient registry, we've gotten up to 50% of our patient population within the registry. So that's a great accomplishment. It'll give us a lot of great information to help us move forward. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we've expanded our board from 5 to 11, which will really help for our strengthening for our long-term success. So next, I'm going to talk about our areas of research. And so we've got our mouse model. Our mouse model we're really lucky that that's available for Refsum disease. It was something that was established many years back. And we've brought that Refsum mouse model to Johns Hopkins, as I mentioned earlier, and we're beginning some pilot studies and to better understand the disease, and hopefully future studies in gene therapy and other therapies to improve the quality of life of people with this disease. We also have studies around the omega oxidation pathway. There's 2 pathways to process photanic acid. One is alpha oxidation, which is broken for Refsum patients. And the second is omega oxidation, which is still available as a pathway for Refsum, people with Refsum. I kind of use the analogy of the alpha oxidation being like a 4-lane highway, and that being closed down, and then everyone having to reroute to a 1-lane highway, which is the omega oxidation pathway. So just imagine if you could take that 1-lane highway and expand it. Well, a lot more can process through that pathway if that were to be the case. And so there was some great research done in the past to say that there is the possibility of expanding that pathway, and we're looking at avenues to see how we could test that and potentially pursue that as a viable treatment option. Metabolomic profiling. Understanding the biomarkers for your disease is really important. When photanic acid was discovered as a biomarker, that made a significant advancement in the understanding of how to treat Refsum disease and enabled the current diet. What we haven't done is taken the newer technologies of today through metabolomic profiling and investigate if there's any other biomarkers that could be helpful in the treatment of an understanding of Refsum disease. And so we're looking to advance those types of studies in the future. And then food testing, as I mentioned earlier, food testing is, the diet is the cornerstone for our current management of the diet and our quality of life. And not much food testing has been done in the past. And we, as an organization, have decided to tackle that head on by testing more foods. Because, as I mentioned, food is the cornerstone of everyday life. And so the more that we can make the information about photanic acid and its precursors available, the more we'll be able to understand what is safe to eat, and hopefully open up some additional foods that may have been considered unsafe in the past. All right, let me move on to the next. in my professional career, I'm very familiar with the need to have goals and objectives. And so with our new 11-person board, we've spent a significant amount of time establishing a clear 3-year strategic roadmap aligned to the foundation's mission. And this plan is organized under 3 different pillars. And I won't go into all of the details here on the slide, but the 3 pillars are around research and care, raising awareness and building our community, and stability and growth. Advancing, we believe that advancing in these 3 areas will make significant progress for ourselves over the next 3 years in obtaining our mission. Let me move on to the next slide here. So our patient registry, our patient registry is so key, to advancing research. And I understand in my own professional career that the more you understand the data, the more you can provide insights and drive decisions. I was diagnosed with Refsum disease. I started to research how progress was made on research towards a cure. And it was clear a patient registry was incredibly important. And not only will it help advance research, it'll also help develop those treatment guidelines I mentioned before. It'll help us to understand how people are being treated today and what is their current progression. It'll also help us connect the researchers and the patients together to, especially as we start to get different research studies and potential clinical trials, we'll be able to engage patients, in those studies. It's an incredible step forward in bringing our community together. And then let me talk a little bit about what we found out to date, about from our registry data. We've gotten 30 participants, which is about 50% of our known patient population, and 25 of those have shared their data with Global DARE. So we've done some analysis on the data. And what's not surprising, because we've understood this to be from just anecdotally talking to individuals, that it takes a long time to get a diagnosis. The registry shows that it takes an average of 18 years and upwards of 40 years to get a diagnosis. That's just, it's sad in many ways, because with the diets, the therapy we do have available to us, if you can get on the diet earlier, you can slow your vision loss and you can slow your hearing loss and lessen other symptoms. So we really need to bring that number down. And then some new discoveries, as far as the information is concerned, is genetic testing. We can see that 76% of the people are diagnosed through genetic testing, not clinical diagnosis. And so that shows a couple of things. We need to, continue to push genetic testing, but also maybe spend more time with our clinicians, especially ophthalmologists, because individuals will get diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa first. And so ophthalmologists, play a critical role in diagnosing people with Refsum disease. And so if they can be familiar with the early indications of Refsum when they diagnose with someone with retinitis pigmentosa, that will hopefully enable an earlier diagnosis and then ability to receive therapy earlier. Also, in prior literature, it's shown that 30% of the patients have shortened fingers or toes, but actually what we're seeing in the data is about 2/3 of the people have shortened fingers and toes, which is a visible sign of the disease. And so that's an easy way for clinicians to be able to see the potential of a connection with Refsum. And then the PA testing, the phthanic acid testing results, often show higher ranges than we expect. We try to manage our levels down to the under 200 range, but as you can see from this chart, that's not always the case. And so, why is that? And being able to spend more time understanding why is it that people can't get their levels down over a period of time. And then the next page will show you a little bit about how, the data on how people are being treated today relative to how often do they get their phthanic acid levels done, what type of tests do they do, how often do they see certain specialists. So this information, as I was mentioning earlier, is really helpful as we look to establish treatment guidelines for this disease, which will help guide people for better care into the future. We're sharing these results with our medical and scientific advisory board. We're encouraging our researchers to access the data. And then we're also sharing it with our Refsum community so that they can understand what we're seeing in the data. Some of the questions we have in the actual patient registry came from patients because they're interested to see, if others are experiencing the same thing as them. So I think that's it for my presentation today, and be happy to answer any questions. You can reach out to us at info@globaldarefoundation.org, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.